Welcome to JCEE Connect. Um, in the yesterday's class, we were discussing about the advantages of the septic tank, and we have also discussed the design details of the septic tank. So, in that design details, two are very important types we have discussed. First one is simple methodology uh, to design the septic tank by considering the detention time and assuming the depth. Volume can be calculated. Then then the after that area can be calculated by assuming length is equal to b is equal to 1 is to 2 means 2 times the b. That details also we have studied. So then some of the very good advantages of the septic tank is very good for the rural places where the isolated houses it will be there. If a more dense population is there in a single area, it is not suitable because the pollution level will increase as the density of the population is going to increase in a particular area. So now we'll come back to the disadvantages. If the septic tank is not properly functioning, the effluent will be very foul and dark. This is very biggest problem in most of the cases. Normally, this is going to happen only when the bacteria are not active. Means if the bacteria are not active, then normally um, the whatever the effluent is there, it is going to convert it into black color. It means that it is creating a foul smell. This foul smell is very dangerous. Sometimes it is anoxic. Anoxic in the sense, even if you inhale any of that kind of gases, it is mostly irritant to the throats, and sometimes some people will go unconsciousness. So this foul smell is uh, very dangerous compared to any of the carbon dioxide and all those things. So leakage of gases from the top cover of the septic tank may cause bad smell and environmental pollution. Of course, uh, this is one common problem we can observe it. Periodic cleaning, removal, and the disposal of sludge remains a tedious problem. Means normally the sludge removal will not come for every for 1 month or 2 months, but it will come 5 to 6 years. But still, that time it is a biggest problem when you are coming to the cleaning purpose. Some unpredictable functioning is going to happen if the characteristics of the wastewater is going to change. Uh, if you take some of the research papers, and if you found now that um, whatever the characteristics of the sewage today are there, uh, that they are going to change after 10 or 15 years or 20 years, because we are designing this for 30 to 40 years. We don't know the characteristics of the sewage after 30 years. And one very important problem is that the residual pharmaceuticals. These residual pharmaceuticals are uh, getting in the sewage frequently. These residual pharmaceuticals are very dangerous for the bacteria. If the bacteria are not activated, or if the bacteria are not able to stabilize the human faces or the wastewater, then the efficiency of the septic tank is going to reduce. Once this is going to happen, then it is the biggest problem for the handling as well as the maintenance of the septic tank, because frequently you will get the foul smell because the bacteria are not active. The bacteria are dying day by day due to these residual pharmaceuticals. When we are talking about this residual pharmaceuticals, if you take an example of if you take 500 milligram of the paracetamol, then their body is not going to utilize full that 500 milligrams. So how much it is required, that much it will utilize. Normal 50 to 60% it will go to the sewage only. Once it is entered to the sewage, many bacteria will be there. The paracetamol is going to come in contact with the bacteria, then it is going to deactivate the cells of the bacteria. So in that cases, the septic tank will not work, then efficiency is going to reduce. Size required is large for the large communities. Of course, when I already said that if uh, the the size what we have mentioned, that is 10 by 6 by 5 or 10 by 5 by 6, it is for the small communities up to 10 to 12%. If more persons are there, then the size of the septic tank has to be increased. In that cases, it is uneconomical because as the size is compared, because uh, when you are implementing any of these um, septic tanks for the larger dimensions, you are using the space uh, for this purpose. And of course the space itself is the biggest problem in most of the cities. In some cities like Bombay and all those things, you cannot do it. Wherever the space is more, there you can provide it with proper ventilation process. So then, whatever the effluent we are getting after this septic tank, it is not as per the standard of the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board, or it is Central Pollution Control Board. So it is little bit higher BOD compared to the standards what we are speaking about. The standards are of 30 milligram per liter of BOD. Then you are able to di- discharge the effluent to the any of the surface body. But in this case, um, whatever the effluent uh, BOD is there, that is around 100 we are getting, which is more than the Central Pollution Control Board. Then this is inefficient for the BOD reduction. Of course, the mosquito nuisance, once the foul smell is coming, mosquito nuisances, because it is once it is treated, it will be disposed to one of the open land. If it is not properly treated, it is going to cause the nuisance. One is the biggest problem is that groundwater contamination, as you expose for the longer period. That is one biggest problem. So then, disposal of this effluent, even once the BOD is 100 or 120, you're not supposed to dispose it to as it is to the surface body. Then still the treatment has to be further processed uh, for the disposal of the effluent. For that, we have different techniques are there that you can apply, but many ways that includes, the first one is soak pit, second one is dispersion trenches, third one is the subsurface irrigation, leaching cesspools, treating and trickling filters, and recycling. The two common methods are very famous and economical, that is soak pit and dispersion trenches. And directly even you can use it for subsurface irrigation also. Soak pit, we'll start with the soak pit. Soak pit does not provide adequate treatment for the raw wastewater, and the pit will clog quickly. Raw water is not at all used because only the treated wastewater coming from the septic tank is only used for the soak pit, because when it is coming to the soak pit, it should be looks like the water only, but the BOD should be there. A soak pit should be used for discharging pre-settled black water or the gray water. See, whatever the sludge is there, it is going to settle in the sludge zone in the septic tank. Then after that, um, only the top portion of the water, either gray water or the black water, that can be treated in the septic tank. Soak pit. Soak pits are appropriate for rural and suburban settlements. This demands on soil. This depends on the soil with sufficient absorption capacity. Soak pits are used for soil where percolation rate is below 25 minutes per centimeter. Whatever this soak pits we are speaking about, um, directly can be discharged where the percolation rate is a little bit high. Um, means uh, 25 minutes is required per centimeter. Means it should absorb, it should not percolate. Means the percolation what we are speaking, it should not more permeable. If it is more permeable, then the groundwater contamination is going to happen. Then whatever the wastewater coming from the septic tank, it is directly introduced into the soak pit where the soil will be introduced or the gravel will be introduced or any media will be introduced. Then the wastewater will come in contact with the soil. Then soil should be able to absorb the whatever the dissolved organic matter that is present in the wastewater which is coming from the septic tank. I said that dissolved organic matter. This is nothing but it does not contain any of the solid matters. It is all dissolved organic matter. That is why the BOD will get it around 80 to 100. Even once all those organic uh, particles or organic matter is absorbed by the particles, then there will not be any problem associated with the soak pit. They are not appropriate for the areas that they are prone of to flooding or have a high groundwater tables. As I already said that if the percolation rate is very high or if the permeability of the soil is very high, whatever the wastewater is there, that wastewater is going to uh, mm, come in contact with the soil and it is entering into the um, groundwater itself where the groundwater table is very high, and wherever the flooding chances are there, there also it is not suitable because the flood water will carry all this organic matter. The total subsurface soil area is required for the soak pits and the dispersion trenches is given by Q into 130 by um, square root of T, where Q is maximum rate of the effluent application in liter per day per meter square of the leaching surface what we are speaking about. T is the standard percolation rate for the soil in minutes per centimeter. The total trench or the soak pit of the area is calculated by the area, that is A is equal to Q by small q. That is where Q is total flow. The small q can be calculated with the 130 by square root of T. If the percolation rate, if you come to know, this can be easily calculated. This is the soak pit where inside the linings are provided. Linings means some of the masonry structures they are going to construct inside the uh, this whatever the soak pit what we are talking about. So yeah, the first one is the lined soak pit. You can see it is lined, brick lining with dry joints. They have made it. This is the second one, unlined soak pit. There will not be any um, lines on the soak pit. That is only the concrete is there, coarse, and they will make it. They will not put any linings. So this is a typical example of the soak pit. You can see that in that soak pit they have added the gravels or the soil particles, which is of higher dimensions of around uh, 4.35 sizes and greater sizes. And as far as possible, um, below 2 size of the particles cannot be used for this. Above 2 to around 8 type of particles will be used in this soak pit, because once you use 75 micron size of the particles, normally the head is going to create and many times it is going to overflow. It is the better standard or the size specification is 2 to 8 This is without lining. This is without lining. They have kept, see, this is a typical type of soak pit where they are discharging the two pipes. You can see that the wastewater is coming from the septic tank. Then there will not be any liners. They have provided surrounding to this. They have just applied this kind of soil particles, where the soil particles is going to absorb most of the mm, organic matter which is present in the wastewater. This is the lining system. The previous one is unlining system. They have now not provided any linings for this. For this, they have provided the inside linings of the store masonry structures. Then, what are the advantages of this soak pit? It can build and repaired with a locally available materials. Small land areas are required. It is a power conservative, of course, no such type of powers is not required. It can build and maintained locally available materials like the soil and mm, the some of the stones which absorb that organic matter, and some of the uh, dried uh, recyclable building materials that can also be used. Some of the demolition waste from the buildings that can also be used in this soak pit, which are having the higher life. And make sure that when you are using any of the materials, the organic matter or the organic content of that the materials what you are using in our soak pit, it should be very less, 3 or 4%. Only that much is required. Only it had to absorb, it should not degrade. It is of course simple technique for all the users. So what are the disadvantages? The disadvantages are pre-treatment is required to prevent the clogging, although the eventually clogging is inevitable. Of course, this can be prevented, as I mentioned earlier. You have to use 2 to 8 size particles to prevent the clogging of the um, materials, clogging of the organic matter. Of course, negative effects on soil and groundwater properties if it is treated properly in the soak pit. One very important consideration is here is that this whatever the septic tank is there, if it is doing its job properly, then there will not be any problem with the groundwater problem, because uh, uh, the remaining 20 to 30% of the BOD will be removed in the soak pit itself. Then what are the failures in the septic system? The failures in the first one is failure by surfacing. The failure in the septic system often show as the wet as a mushy area above the drain field, often because of the drain field can no longer absorb the effluent. Most of the time what will happen is that what we are speaking about the drain field is the ultimate disposal area. Most of the time, whatever the wastewater is coming from the septic tank, if it is disposed on the drain field without the soak pit, then up to some time, 1 or 2 years, it is going to absorb. Then further, the absorption capacity of that soil or the matter, it is going to decrease, because the most of the portion is already absorbed. In that cases, whatever the surface or the drain field, it is going to exhaust, then the slime layer it is going to create, then it is very dangerous for the failure of the septic system. Some of the tanks, if you designed it in the side of the roads, then it is a big problem, because through the side of the roads your side drains will be there, the water will carry all those things. It is better to avoid the septic tanks near to the roads. And sometimes some of the nutrients are acts like a food for the plants also. Is one advantage. Once the completely breed is removed, it acts like a manure for most of the plants. So then it can be used for the making or the green environment or green environment success. This is typical septic tank system where you can see houses there. The round shape what you are talking about, that is a septic tank. And then after that, your outlet is there. Then you have different trenches are there. Trenches they have created for the um, disposal. In that trenches, one pipe will be there. That pipe is made up of small holes. With that small holes, the whatever the water which is coming from the septic tank, that will percolate into the materials. Automatically, the BOD is going to reduced. This is of course one more type of trench type of systems. Means after septic tanks, um, that can be used, that can be disposed into the trench type of systems. Of course, these trenches are of 0.5 to 1 meter deep and 1 meter wide. The maximum length of the trench is 30 meter. Spacing between the trenches is 2 meter. One distribution box is provided for every 3 to 4 trenches. You can see the pipe which is perforated, or it consists of small holes. Now this cleaning of the septic tank, we'll do it in the next class. Of course, we'll complete this Of course, I was already said that the cleaning of the tank systems is done regularly once it is overflowing or once if it is unable to do it using some of the uh, uh, vehicles. That vehicle is uh, having the pump. What that pump will be there, it will be pump is it will pump the sewage whichever is there in the septic tank, and it will be loaded to the tank, and it will be disposed in some of the land areas, and that land areas it can be used as a manure. This is how they are normally going to collect all those septic tank waste, and they will dispose it into the land. Okay, in the next class, maybe we'll start with the directly problem associated with the septic tank. Thank you.